I need to say is just to advise everybody that this online meeting is being recorded and will be available for future records. So bear that in mind as you make your contributions, hopefully, as the meeting goes on. So welcome very much, everybody. This is the latest online meeting of the Acocks Green Ward Forum. John O'Shea and myself are the two ward councillors on screen, and
no, can't hear him.
Can't hear you. Well, go along the connection.
We can hear you.
Where?
We share the chairing of the meeting, and
you can hear us.
So
mute us again.
Yeah.
Going on to Zoom. Onto that.
So,
no.
First item on the agenda is
Raise
an
hand.
update on the Birmingham Clean Air Zone. Now, do we have an officer to raise that, or is that being done by us?
That's been done by you councillors. We haven't got.
We have this every time we try and join their meetings.
Okay, so the Clean Air Zone is John. Correct me if I'm this wrong, but the Clean Air Zone is it's live, but it's in, I think it's what's called a soft launch at the moment, and you don't actually get charged until the 14th. Shoot me down quickly if I've got that wrong, John.
No, that bit's right, definitely right.
So from the 14th, anybody entering the Clean Air Zone, which is basically anywhere inside the Inner Ring Road, the Inner Ring Road itself is not in the Clean Air Zone, but everything off the Inner Ring Road towards the city centre is. You will be charged, and you need to proactively log on and pay the charge if you are in a non-compliant vehicle, which you can check. There's a checker to check whether you are or are not in a compliant vehicle. The rough guide is that, very broadly speaking, is if it's a diesel vehicle before manufactured roughly before 2015, or a petrol vehicle manufactured roughly before 2006, I think. Is that right?
I think it's 0506, yes.
0506. Then you're likely to need it, but you do need to check on the checker because there's some variation between models and so on. And when the vehicles became compliant with the level of or the level of emissions that are emitted. So that's where we are. John, did you want to add anything to that or go to questions?
Well, just to add that because we've been running the system for some months now, and if you drove into Birmingham and off the Inner Ring Road into anywhere into the city, you will have crossed a camera. And certainly, I think the past 2 months or so, anybody who's done that and would be had to pay had a letter sent to them to remind them that they would have to pay if they come in after the after the charge starts. So we're monitoring that, and we know that the forecast of about 1 in 4 cars having to pay is actually pretty much spot on. It's about 24% of vehicles have to pay, so 3 out of 4 vehicles don't pay. It's really important to pay. It's not a congestion charge. You are not required to pay if your vehicle is compliant with the Clean Air Zone. And there are various things in place to support people who either work or live inside it to update their vehicle or to get a travel pass. So there's a lot of support there, and that covers certainly on the low income up to £30,000 a year income. So it's quite a generous scheme that's running. So yes, for the first 2 weeks there'll be no charge imposed. If you go and try and pay online, you'll be directed to a page that tells you about the various options you have. And I think I can say that I think for the following 2 weeks after that, if you don't pay the charge, you will get a letter which will give the option of paying the fine or paying the charge late. So I assume people will choose to pay the charge late rather than pay the fine, but it's your call. And so that's going to be a further part of the soft launch of this. But it's here up and running now, and it's going to improve the quality of air at the city centre, and that will absolutely save lives.
Could I ask something, John?
Yep.
Veronica here. Our neighbour, her mother lives just within the zone. So obviously it's a problem for her when she visits her mum, but also what happens when somebody living inside the zone then goes in and out?
Now that they can get, there are currently discounts available for replacing the vehicle. If you live in there, I think you get a 1 or 2 year exemption to allow you to replace your vehicle. The first thing to ask is, does your neighbour's car require payment? That is the most important question to ask.
Yes, it would do. It definitely would do. Payment. Rena's car. Yeah, she's got quite an older car. I mean, this is the problem: is people can't afford just to change it, update a car like that necessarily.
No, I think we all appreciate that. My car doesn't qualify either, and sorry, my car does qualify for the charge, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So looking to replace that, and I've just got around it by having an electric car, which is zero emission. Unfortunately, yes, some people are going to be caught by it, but that's the function of it: is to encourage people to either look at different ways of travelling in.
Yeah.
There's no charge for walking, cycling, getting the train, getting the bus. They're all free of charge. There's no charge if your car is compliant. But the driver here, one, this is a government requirement. If we don't do this, we would face significant fines. And secondly, it's about saving lives.
Yeah.
We lose 900 people a year because of the poor air quality.
Yeah.
So if we can improve that, that will have an impact on people's lives. And these are often the poorest people who get affected by it.
Yeah.
There are exemptions in place at the moment. If you go to the Millennium Point Vaccination Centre, or if you're going to Children's Hospital, you can get a voucher, which essentially gives you free access to that. So that's in place now. But I'm afraid there's no easy way out of it. Yes, it's in place, and if your car is not compliant, then you will have to pay. I'm really sorry, but
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
I actually got a question from John L. No. Short answer, there are no plans to turn a CAS into a congestion zone. A CAS and a congestion charge are different things. Congestion charge charges everything that goes in, like the London one does. Clean air zone charges vehicles that are not clean enough. And it's about reducing the filth in the air down to a more acceptable level. And this will have that effect, and will have it at a reasonably fast rate.
Oh. Okay. Right. If there are no more questions on that item, and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is about Commonwealth Games volunteering opportunities. So again, is that being done by us, I assume?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So basically, registration has opened for people who would like to volunteer to support the Commonwealth Games. Wide variety of ways of doing that, through stewarding, giving people lifts, all the sorts of things. I mean, wide range of activities. And I think there is a total of about 13,000 volunteers needed over the time of the games. So it's a tremendous opportunity for people to get involved. Could Pat or Beverly, could you put the link to that in the chat? There's a link to the Commonwealth Games website link for the volunteering opportunity so people can find out more. That's probably all that needs saying, but if other people want to add to it. Yeah, okay. Next item is West Midland Police update. I'm very pleased to say that we have PC Kaku from the Acocks Green Neighbourhood Policing Team with us this evening. Would you like to do a quick update of the sort of current top issues and what the team are working on, and then we can have questions? Would that work?
Yeah, that works fine for me. Hi everyone. Obviously, we've got a few things in place that involve the local community. So we've had Copper with a Copper, which is an online like this kind of thing where you can come in and ask any questions to PC Davies, anything in relation to local area or policing in general. It's gone quite well. I think we've had we've had 2 sessions so far, and quite a number of people have joined the meeting, which is quite good. Obviously, for local residents, if you want further information on what we do, we are tweeting a lot of the stuff we do on a daily basis. Last week we tweeted one day where we've had about 10 of different incidents, from a warrant in the morning to arrest attempts in the afternoon, seizing multiple vehicles for no insurance tax or other offences, and then dealing with logs of RTCs and whatnot. We've also got Speed Watch and Street Watch, which we're setting up on different locations, which involves the local community. So we're setting up a new Street Watch in Barber Court, which is just on the border of our patch of Tyseley. That involves local residents attending and doing neighbourhood patrols or reporting incidents that occur or challenging people. We've got PCSOs involved in that and PCs who attend and help them out. We've also got one in Acocks Green Village, one on Shirley Road, and then obviously a contention spot which is Speed Watch, which we do ourselves. We do Speed Watch on a few local roads. Arden Road is one where we've started, involves local residents. Obviously, in terms of getting some of the equipment, they've got to finance that between themselves on the particular road and all the people involved. It normally involves camera equipment and a few other bits. But if anyone is interested in setting one up on their local road, we can arrange that as well. West Midlands Now, that's an update on any local incidents. The last update, I think, was theft of catalytic converters in Acocks Green. We've had multiple of those. We actually had a good result where they've arrested a few offenders in the process of stealing a catalytic converter. They were arrested at the time. Investigation is ongoing. I think 2 of them have been charged, but I'll have to get those details further. Any other questions?
I will open it up to questions from the floor. If anybody's got questions for PC Kaku.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, David.
Yeah, thanks. Are you chairing, Rod?
I am, yes,
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have we? Thanks. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Are we progressing with the 5-year plan? And have we got the resources and the determination to make this successful?
Okay, so the 5-year plan is in process of being completed. They had produced one, and it was being reviewed by the supervision at the moment, just to ensure it fits the profile of what the plans are for the next 5 years. I know it involved ASB in a few local areas involving Fox Hollies Park, the flats, and also there's a few addresses which were involved in the 5-year plan, which we've had complaints about ASB and whatnot.
I know that you originally consulted on the 5-year plan. When it's agreed upon, will you actually publish it?
I can request that. That wouldn't be up to myself, but I'm sure that I can request that. We've got a new sergeant as well. I did forget to mention. We've got a new sergeant called Lee Howkins. He's actually just started in the last 2 weeks, and he's put together the 5-year plan. So it's actually in the process of going through the sergeants and the inspectors. I'll put that down as a note to request if that can be published, so everyone's aware of it.
Yeah. And the other thing, you know, the team might probably think I'm neurotic about this, but over time I'm becoming very concerned and doubtful about the reasoning, the interference, and I use the term strongly, the interference of past government in some of our local structures. To mention what we've looked, and I know it's something to do with your plan, but it's all part of it. And it's a national thing. I think it's policy. I think it's government policy for some inner circle who are influencing local authorities, in fact, and our police. The Birmingham City Police, not Birmingham City Police, the West Midlands Police. But although they come under the structures of the nation, they belong to the people of the West Midlands. And there's been so much interference. We're losing all the police stations. We've lost 600 police stations in the nation. And also the resources, austerity didn't help, and that started under a Labour government when we tried to be friendly to the business interests. And then the finance collapsed. And then certainly from the coalition government, we seem to have had a greater influence on local authorities, and I'll finish it here, to the point that we've lost the structures of our community. And I'll be as strong and as serious as that. And it's going on now. There's been no consultation. You know, sorry, Chair, but when we're dealing with things that belong to the public, belong to the citizens, and we're all part of it, we should be consulted. You know, if you're going to start reorganising our police force, then we should be consulting on it. Shouldn't be left to some of these busybodies coming along and making all these changes, and because we'll all turn up twisted, miserable like me. So, you know, I'll get off the subject now, but I'll go back to my first statement. Have we got resources and the determination to make local policing successful?
Okay.
Can you ask it?
Yeah. In relation to that, in terms of our Acocks Green as an area, we've actually got a lot of students coming through, which is quite good for us. Yeah. Which means we've got a lot of fresh blood coming through. At the moment, we've got 4 new students who've just joined the team. We have tweeted their first jobs and their details on our Twitter feed, if you follow that. Yeah. And a few of them will be here for 5 months, and then they move on to the next rotation. But we are getting more and more students through, and that's part of the government recruitment overall to the whole United Kingdom. I can't comment on general policing policy in terms of government, but locally it seems to be going the right way. We're getting a lot of students. We are hitting our targets and what we need to do. Obviously, certain areas, due to summer demand and whatnot, we lack resources, but that is slowly getting filled from our perspective from here.
Thanks. Is that your first name? How do you pronounce that? Kaya?
That's my surname, Kaku.
What's your first name?
Jay.
Jay. Thanks, Jay.
So, following on from that, Jay, PC Kaku, how many numbers does the Acocks Green policing team currently have, if you include those students?
So at the moment, I think we're up to 12 police officers. We've got 2 PCSOs, which is quite a decent team, considering some of the other local neighbourhood teams are a lot smaller. Obviously, we've got a number of students, but it's nice to have a larger team who can target more things. And deal with them all.
And also just a very specific question. I think pretty well everyone's aware there was a tragic crash on Foxhollis Road on Saturday evening. Could you provide sort of an update in terms of what you can say about where the investigation is with that and what will happen next?
Yep. Okay, so obviously it's an ongoing investigation. Tragically, 2 people lost their lives who were local residents to the Acocks Green area, and they've left children, unfortunately. There is an ongoing investigation into that. There was a male arrested at the scene who is suspected to be involved in the incident. I can't comment on that further because I don't know how far the investigation's gone. And obviously it's an ongoing traffic collision. A report will come out and that will be published in due course. I did expect this question. Obviously people are going to ask questions about traffic calming measures and things. There seems to be there's a lot of inference in terms of what actually occurred. Was it speeding? What was an accident? What happened? Unfortunately, because it's an ongoing investigation, that's all the information I can give at the moment. But we are passing attention to the area. The plan is also we've conducted speed watch on that road, and I think on a generally bi-weekly basis we have a traffic safety camera parked up on that particular road, which does tend to slow people down. But obviously, this has happened.
Yeah, and I think the concern is that the cameras, which are there pretty, they are there quite frequently, but they're there generally during what I'd loosely describe as working hours.
They tend to be during those times, and obviously when we do our speed watch, we do them according to our shift pattern. But our shift pattern varies to theirs. So sometimes when we've done a speed watch, it's been later in the evening, and we've stopped multiple vehicles. Obviously, depending on the situation, we give them advice or we'll issue them with a ticket, and then check for other offences, no tax, MOT, insurance and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Have we got any further questions? No. Well, thank you very much for.
Sorry, Roger.
Yeah. Okay, Veronica. Yeah.
The other Sunday, the Acocks Green Village in Bloom team actually filled our 22 planters with new plants, all paid for by ourselves, I think. And that was on the Sunday, and within the week, numerous plants have been stolen out of these planters. There were 5 outside, 1 outside Morrison's and all the rest. We had this problem last year, and there was a gentleman caught. He was just driving his car up and just loading them up into the back. And I just wondered whether there was any sort of footage about that or any reporting.
As far as I know, I've not seen that being reported because it would have been mentioned in one of our meetings. But I'll check and make sure that if it has been reported by someone. If it's not, then we'll get in contact with your team or the Acocks Green in Bloom, and we'll have to obviously crime that, and we'll do our investigation. You are correct. Last year we did detain someone, arrest someone, and recover property in relation to the thefts, which were very similar. It did happen over the summer, so obviously it might be expected this might occur again. But I think this kind of thing has become a bit of a national thing, where we've had a lot of people's gardening items and tools and chairs and whatnot go missing from their garden. So it might just be due to the weather and the shortage of the items in the general public. Yes,
it's just that they're there for the public to enjoy, and it's just very depressing, when you put them all in and the big team effort, and then, even overnight or within the week, a lot of them have just disappeared. But thank you for that.
No problems. I'll make sure we check that, and I'll feed that back to yourself.
Yeah, Franley is our coordinator. So.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry butting in.
Yep.
If I can be greedy. It's a pleasure to see Jay, and you know, I believe the police are an integral part of the community and life in any built any area. Is there any chance we could perhaps have a regular invite for the police to the ward meeting? It's so important that they're certainly involved in what's going on in an area.
No, absolutely. In fact, I was just about to say to thank
Okay.
PC Kaku for coming, because it really is invaluable every time we have the police along to these meetings. There's always a good discussion, and it's really helpful, you know, for people to know that you're here and can answer questions about local issues. So absolutely standing invitation, and always very, very welcome to all these meetings.
No, I'll pass that on, and I think that as long as we've got prior notice and things like that, we'll try our best to make sure that one of us is here.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is for residents, community and voluntary groups. So are there any of those groups that want to raise issues at the meeting? I know there are several groups represented here online. So does anyone want to take the floor? And
yeah, well, I might be turn because I've been on twice, but I'd like to address the meeting if there's nobody else got issues raised. Because then that would name report. You want me to continue?
yeah, absolutely.
As you're probably aware, Chair, I did it at the last minute, so I do apologise for that. It's quite late. But we have, I'm currently chair of the Acocks Green Neighbourhood Forum and the Village Partnership. And we have submitted some submissions to the meeting over a couple of issues. Did you receive those?
Mm-hmm. Are you referring to the comments on localisation?
No, not those, Roger. That's a long-term thing. No, because what we've got here with the ward meeting is the only structure we've got in our communications and interlinking with our local authority. So it's most important that we develop on that. No, it's the issue. I issue them to Beverly and yourselves on the two issues of Rookwood Road Bridge.
Okay, yeah.
Historic. Did you get that?
Yep.
I don't know if you want to accept those, or in courtesy to the meeting, can I just officially raise them?
Of course, yeah.
Thanks. There's two issues in the meeting, councillors. The first one is Rookwood Road Bridge, historical case of reported fly chip rubbish. We refer to this historical reported situation with fly chip rubbish deposited on the upper area of the railway embankment adjacent to Rookwood pedestrian bridge over the railway from Alexander Road to Arden Road. This is the site where the owner ceased trading, presumably having acquired the piece of land previously from Rail Track or whoever they were aware at the time, but is now legally controlled by the Crown. Why the Railway Authority sold part of the railway embankment to private interests is beyond understanding. This is something else that way we treated in the public realm. This is now part of the problem, as Rail Track informed they have no involvement with this area of land and the owner is no longer in business. The Crown Estates were contacted, but they informed they do not clear rubbish or similar undertakings. We are now in a dilemma or difficult circumstances from which there appears to be no way forward. So who does the council issue any legal order for the removal of this fly chip rubbish? What happens if this rubbish is or becomes a public threat, or even a threat to the railway by cascading down the embankment? Presumably this site is private land, now controlled by the Crown Estate, who would be required to give access. There is thought that there's some contract correspondence with Rail Track and the Crown Estate, but with little progress. That's the first one. The second issue, litter on Yardley Road. We are still receiving ongoing complaints with regard to the regular rubbish and litter on the Yardley Road in the area of the shops between Cottage Brook Road and Elmden Road, which is degrading to the local area when having such a dirty main road which serves as the main access to and from Acocks Green. The main problem would seem to be from the accommodations above the shops and businesses, not having arrangements for wheelie bins, but we understand that the council is looking to review a red card system, whatever that is. Why do the landlords have no apparent responsibility for providing facilities for rubbish disposal, which normally happens, as I understand, which would prevent the wild animals and stray dogs breaking the rubbish bags open and scattering the domestic waste around this public space? Members and concerned residents have asked that these matters be submitted to the Acocks Green Ward Forum for any possible forward progress and actions, these being long ongoing concerns for the local area. And I did do the original introduction to the Birmingham City Council Acocks Green Ward Forum meeting, 9th of June 2021 online. So Birmingham City Council are our overseers as far as these matters, and we're just a local area of the ward committee who tries to maintain contact and engagement with local people. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. I'll say a little bit, and then I'll bring in John because he has a certain amount of relevant expertise in this matter.
Be fair, so do you.
I think that very specifically on the Rookwood to Alexander Walkway fly tipping issue, I completely agree with you. It is. I can't understand why that area of land ever was sold off, but presumably the person who bought it thought it was a good idea at the time and then realized it wasn't. But it does seem utterly bizarre, but that is where we are. The specific thing you say about what happens if there was hazardous, dangerous waste or there was waste threatening the railway line, in those specific questions, actually the council could act. If there's, for example, dangerous asbestos or food waste that's creating a major problem with rats and so on, the council actually does have the power to act. The issue is more with the, if you like, the settees and the what we might call inert waste that people throw over there that isn't an environmental hazard, though it's extremely unsightly and unpleasant to look at as everyone who walks by, but it's not actually causing a danger to people. That's the area that's the problem and where the deadlock is in terms of the Crown Estates, won't deal with that. And I think what's also particularly difficult is that it's hard to see how the normal practice for the Crown Estates, as happened, for example, with the building on Broad Road, which was seized and then, as people may remember, shortly afterwards burnt down in a interesting coincidence. But that was acquired by the Crown Estates following criminal action against the previous owner under the Proceeds of Crime Act, but pretty well instantly sold on to the person who has now redeveloped it, and there are some new flats there on the site of that. The question here is, who's going to buy that land? Who would want to buy that land? And therefore we seem to be stuck in a sort of catch-22 position that there is no sort of prospect for this being resolved. So it's not just about why won't the Crown Estates look after their land? It's also, well, what's going to happen where there's land that it appears there will be nobody who's got any interest with, and the Crown Estates theoretically in that situation could be sort of stuck with it in perpetuity. So how is that issue resolved as well is sort of part of the bigger picture. But I'll hand over to John now to pick up the other issues you've raised.
Thanks, Roger. I agree with you. It's a ludicrous situation to be in. We can't enforce on the Crown. The Crown don't clear their land, and there's not a lot we can do about it. And that it's an awful place to be in, but that's the reality of it. Yes, if we had something that was causing a threat to life, then City Council would deal with that. If it was a risk of falling down the embankment, then Network Rail would deal with that. That's where they would get involved with this stuff. But stuff that's just sitting on the land, they're not going to do anything about. What we will do is, over the next couple of months, we're having the bollards that were originally on Alexander Road, at the roadside, the entrance there, those going back in. And that's at least going to stop people backing vehicles up that alleyway and dumping stuff over the fence. What it won't stop is where a lot of the waste has come from, further down, which is from over the back of the fences of the houses there. And it's something I'll be saying a lot over the next few months. People have got to not make that choice to pollute our city. We'll put some time cleaning it up, but you're not helping us. So at this stage, there isn't an answer to that bit. The Yardley Road, again, as Roger knows, he's on the committee that's dealt with this. It's an example of a problem that exists across Acocks Green and more widely across the city. And that's a change in how we use accommodation. You know, obviously historically, flats above shops were owned and occupied with people who ran the shops. Lived above it, went downstairs, ran your shop, went home, upstairs at the end of the day. Then in the 70s and 80s, people moved out of those and they became storage areas or just vacant. And the past 10 to 15 years, people have realised that there are homes there and they've been brought back into use as flats, but not by the shopkeepers. So we have a problem that these places were not built with appropriate storage space for rubbish. So the residents up there have nowhere to store the rubbish. But that is a real problem for them. And there is a concern about us giving them wheelie bins because the shopkeepers can then use those bins to dump their rubbish in, which is an offence. What we are going to be dealing with and doing on that is some work's going to happen over the next few months. We'll be talking about this more over the next couple of weeks. So I'll keep it a bit quiet right now. But we're looking at this as a city-wide problem. I think there'll be a mix of solutions where we are going to be reviewing, you say, the red card properties, which are properties that were originally not given wheelie bins. So every property in the city was given a red or a green card, and most got green cards. We had somewhere to store your wheelie bins. Red card properties had steps or nowhere to store wheelie bins off the pavement. Over the past few years, we have actually worked with local residents to issue wheelie bins to a number of streets where they have asked for them. We're about to do that to Gough Road up in Spark Hill because about 2/3 of the residents there signed a petition requesting them. So we're going to supply them wheelie bins because it's tidier than having black bags out there. It's not great having wheelie bins on the street all the time, but it's tidier than black bags. So we may well have a solution where we look at some of those shop runs, and I would suggest the Cottersbrook to Elmdon one is suitable for wheelie bins. Then the others, we have to find other solutions to stop the black bags piling up, and we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. So this is very much a live issue, and watch this space.
Okay, did you want to come back in on that, David?
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, and thanks, John. No, that's fair comment. I realise the difficulties, but in some ways, you know, it's even if I'm travelling into Acocks Green and we're trying to sell Acocks Green, particularly at the Commonwealth Games and they're around and then they come through, the site is disgusting. That used to be called a little market area. That you could do all your shopping there, and it was really an integral part of the community. We seem to be losing, having no influence on our own place. Things are going on that we seem to have no control over. You know, who's accountable for what? It seems that, you know, we've got no rights at all. I know we're supposed to be living in a democracy. So, you know, and it's like lots of things have been getting, and I've referred to it earlier on. And I know it's probably not relevant to the local meeting like the Wood Committee, but it's as if there's somebody, something who unaccountability is in control, and you know, the citizen, and I put that in my other bid. The citizen, people don't like the term citizen. You know, maybe there's too much responsibility to be a citizen. The rights and the privileges and the duties of being a citizen. But in my book, and probably I'm being a bit bored on this, the citizen is a fairly important role. And, you know, I feel the citizen is an important person. And their environment is not in their interest. If I'm embarrassing, you come on the bus going up into the village and you're going through Yardley Road there, it's like a tip. It's absolutely disgusting. It's like, I don't know, it's like some blooming rock place. And I'll take everything that you've said, Councillor, and I do appreciate it. But somebody ought to take control somewhere. But thank you for listening anyway. And presumably you can accept those two issues because they've been going, they're historic. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you. Julia Larden wanted to come in as well on this, I think.
I did want to come in, but to say some things, but not on this particular issue. So happy to wait until this particular issue is dealt with. Right.
Is there anybody else that wanted to comment on the issues that David raised?
Yeah, could I just say about the rubbish? At one point, you were actually issuing the residents of the flat with a recognised council bag, which was a clear plastic bag with red stripes on it, so that anybody from the city council or whatever going past and could pick those bags up like the grey bag. And what was happening then, people were dumping black bags, which you know are not legal. So what's happened to those bags that you were actually... Yeah, they do attract it, but at least you knew that each flat there, and the other thing is they put them out at all times. They don't just put, like we have to put our wheelie bins out on a certain day, but they tend to put those bags out as soon as, I mean, I know it's difficult because you don't want bagfuls of rubbish hanging about in your flat, but when they did have those clear plastic bags that were definitely council bags, at least we all knew that they were legitimately there, whereas now they're just black bags and they could come from anywhere. I mean, the one opposite, the house next to the little pizza place or whatever it is, the one time, the guy with all the gardening equipment and everything outside, he showed me that unfortunately the chap down the side there forgot to put his wheelie bin out at the time. So what he'd done is his wheelie bin was completely stacked up down the side of the property there, and he'd just put his black bags out straight out by the tree there because he'd forgotten to put it out at the right time. But I do wonder what's happened to those council bags that they did have that were legitimate.
John, did you want
Can I come back?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, the striped bags proved what we knew. It showed that we had a chunk of waste coming from flats above shops. The problem is, there is quite a significant cost in supplying bags to people. But you've got issues that some of the properties, again, I'm looking at this across the city, not just about this short stretch of road, where you have a very high turnover of residents. People can be there for, frankly, a matter of weeks. And you supply them with, let's say, 50 bags, and they put them out for a few weeks, and then they use those bags because they get moved on somewhere else. So we lose the bags, and next person coming in doesn't get the bags. Also, that yes, we give the people the bags. There's nothing stopping using all the bags at once, essentially, or topping them up with black bags. You know, all that really did was to show us that we had a problem with flats above shops and them leaving their rubbish out. And even if somebody puts out a black bag on the street, at some point we've still got to clear it. Now, there is a part of me that says we should just leave it there, but we can't do that because we have got to take the stuff away off the streets at some point. So it's all got to go. So bear with me on this for a bit longer. We've got some work to do on it. There's also a chunk of education, which you're quite right to point out, because we identified that there are a number of communities in the city, particularly migrant communities, who have come from countries where you don't have a free waste collection service in the way we operate. It doesn't work out in Washford Heath before the pandemic, and we found out then that people did not know about our free HRCs. They thought the tips were charged for, and there are a number of countries where you do actually have to have a personal contract to get rid of your rubbish. It's not like here you put a bin out and we take it away. It is. Thank you. It is. Sky have changed the annoying announcement. It is a paid for, personally contracted service. We had a chap go over to see us from Russia, and he runs a firm that does 60 million paid collections a day. So people aren't used to how we work over here, and we have pieces of work to do to educate them, and that's something we're working on that right now. We're reaching out to groups like Centrala and to the mosques to reach into those groups that don't have the understanding of how things work here, to try and put the education in there. And if we get it out into the community groups, that's going to have hopefully a better effect, rather than just telling people once and then they move on elsewhere, and they don't necessarily pass the information on to the next resident. So we can provide stuff to the landlords, but it only works with the good landlords. And frankly, those aren't our problems. So bear with me. There is a lot of work going on right now.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Anne, were you looking to come through on this or a separate point?
No, I was just going to say that Davies pointed out the bit of the road, Cottersbrook to Elmdon, but the really worst part, I think, is Francis to Florence, because and even today it had been cleared and there was a bag out pretty well straight away afterwards. And also, I'm wondering if the greengrocers on the corner of Florence Road has actually got a commercial bin, because there doesn't seem to be anywhere that it would be stored, and the passageway behind the shops is too narrow for one. So I'm just wondering if that could be chased up, because I'm wondering if some of the rubbish by the two trees in Florence Road, corner of Florence Road, is from that shop, because some of it seems to be cardboard and such like that in black bags. So that's the two things I was going to, but there doesn't seem to be such a problem between Florence Road and Cottersbrook School with the flats.
No, you're right. It is those two sections. So yeah, I'll talk to our duty of care team. I think they also need to kind of have a chat with the new flooring shop that's opened up along there. I'm not sure they've got a trade waste contract either. So I'll drop duty of care team on to have some words, because if they can't produce the contract, it's a £400 fine.
Right.
And we do hammer people for it, because if you're a trader, we don't collect your waste free of charge. You have to pay it. If not, essentially you are undercutting other traders who do have that contract. So yeah, yes. After that, I'll talk to our DOC team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Julia, did you want to come in now?
Yeah, not about rubbish, annoying though it is. First of all, I just wanted to do one or two updates for the minutes, really. But before I do that, can I check, has anybody talked about planning issues yet?
No.
No. All right. All I really wanted to say, and I imagine everybody who involves themselves with planning, including councillors, would agree on this, that Acocks Green is having increasing success with objecting to large, not very well thought through multiple occupation dwelling type have been turned down in the last few months. so nobody should feel hopeless. There's you know, a very large development planned near them of some kind, and they can do nothing about it. That's not so. And planning department recently have turned a number of those down without even going as far as the planning committee to get their opinion. It was the first thing I wanted to say about planning. The second was just again, I guess just for the minutes, but Acocks Green groups, certainly the focus group and the neighbourhood forum, and I think the councillors are objecting to a proposed new development on the corner of Lincoln Road, Lincoln Wharf, I think it's called. 15 flats and one pair of semi-detached properties. Not that, no, I think everybody's accepted that building there is possible, but we feel that the development, proposed development is particularly the upper story, the second story is ugly, and also there are a lot of concerns about parking in that. Also, there's a slightly weird one that the focus group chewed over on the basically on the corner of Augusta Road and Yardley Road. A pair of semis. Design looks okay, but we don't think that there is enough. There seems to be concern about enough parking space. Again, parking often being at a premium Acocks Green. And the only other update I wanted to do was just on that long-running saga on the conservation area, that its proposed conservation area was rejected by the. We had a meeting called by the neighbourhood forum at the end of March, and in Ward did listen to our views, promised to get back to us on certain points, which hasn't yet happened, but also. We have written outlining a number of local community particular concerns with the way that the planning officer has handled the proposal, and we feel that he's ignored statutory guidance from Historic England on this. So we're awaiting a response from the leader of the Birmingham City Council, Councillor Ward, at the moment. Those were just general updates. For the benefit of anybody who hasn't already heard all that, and also maybe for the minutes. And then, if it's all right, I wanted to ask a question about something completely different. That's okay.
Yep.
Yep. And maybe it's too early to ask this, or maybe it's not an appropriate time, but I think a lot of people will be aware that I think it was yesterday the new boundary proposals for Yardley came out. I looked at them only in a cursory sort of a way so far. I know that the Conservatives have been having a bit more of a look. I just wondered at this point, and we have until the 2nd of August to comment. I didn't think there was going to be a comment period at all, but there is until 2nd of August. So I just wondered at this point, and I know we're a completely, well, Acocks is very cross-party, but this is a completely cross-party meeting, and this isn't particularly about, I guess, about political interests so much as community ones. But are there any views out there at the moment that would be worth talking about, or is this perhaps not the appropriate
I think it's fine. I mean, there was a cross-party group who met to discuss the previous proposals, which were, shall we politely say, much more radical. For a couple of reasons. One was because it was based on the idea of reducing the number of MPs by 50, which meant that it was, by its nature, that tends to make it more radical alterations when you're changing the overall numbers. And secondly, because we had to do it within the old ward boundaries, which were smaller and larger and made it much more difficult. And that would have resulted in splitting Acocks Green away from the rest of Yardley. And I think that was the issue that most exercised people in Acocks Green, that we felt our history is with the rest of Yardley. Obviously the new changes which are helpfully being put up at the moment keep Acocks Green in with the rest of Yardley, and the majority, not everything, but the majority of the seat is as it was. I mean, the major change is that Garrett's Green goes out and more of Small Heath comes in. I think that's the easiest way of describing it. There are inevitably changes because they always use the most up-to-date local authority ward boundaries and are loath to cross those. I mean, only in exceptional circumstances will they do that. So because there's been a set of boundary changes, it's inevitable that there is going to be some changes, and that is part of it. But probably, I guess, around 80% of the old Yardley is in the new Yardley, and as I said, from that meeting, the big issue was keeping Acocks Green in Yardley, and that is now the case. So while I'm sure people will mull over these and perhaps come up with alternative suggestions that are better, it does seem to have addressed the main comments of that meeting. Does anybody else have points they'd like to raise on the proposed boundary changes?
Roger? Yeah, I mean, you have covered it. I put that map up on the screen so you can see it. There's some admin tidying up of bits of it. So we got bits of Hall Green North and Sparkbrook and Borsall Heath East that are currently in Yardley, and those are being pushed back out to into their constituencies because those are very small bits. And you say, yeah, there aren't many. There are actually some wards in Birmingham where they are breaking them up to put them into CLPs. Northfield, Selly Oak, and Hall Green have some shared wards there. Just trying to get the numbers right, and unusually they've broken the city boundary. The proposed new Hodge Hill constituency picks up 2 wards in Solihull, which is going to annoy Solihull no end. Give them a Labour MP. So these are the proposals. This is the first pass. Yes, there is a. This is the consultation and through until August. So you can do that on bcereviews.org. It's worth saying that the numbers matter. It's between about 69,000 and 78,000 electors per constituency, and they cannot go outside those numbers. That's the cast iron rule. There are only 2 seats in England where they do that, and that's the Isle of Wight, because the Isle of Wight's too big to have 1, but too small for these to have 2, so they're giving it 2. Everywhere else in England, those are the required sizes, and that makes it quite difficult. We currently have in the West Midlands region 59 MPs, going down to 57. Actually, those 2 seats are being lost in the Black Country and Staffordshire. Everywhere else is going to have the same sort of numbers. So, as you see, the changes there. The biggest one is bringing all of Small Heath, which is currently shared with Hodge Hill, into Yardley, and in return we give about 7,000 electors in Garrett's Green back to Hodge Hill, and that makes the numbers work out. It's more difficult, you think, to try and make this work. If you fancy playing with it, there's a handy website called boundaryassistant.com, and you can play with that and actually work through the numbers and move wards around to try and make it work. It's really quite difficult to do it. Any changes you make here have an impact on other seats. So if we were to find a way of bringing Garrett's Green in, you then got to do something with Hodge Hill to make the numbers up there. So, and that knocks on across the entire region. So it's a really complicated thing to try and get right. There's consultation now. We put your views until October, so it's August. Sorry. They will then, at some point, probably early next year, publish those objections, and there will be a number of hearings held locally across the region to discuss those, and they will come back with a final set of suggestions in sometime in 2023, at which point they will be laid before Parliament, but there will be no vote this time. The last two passes failed because the government didn't put them to a vote because they didn't like them. This time round, they won't even put them to a vote. Once the Boundary Commission comes back with its final version, then that'll be what will go into law sometime 2023. And while they've got something that works right now, I can remind you that they did last time around. They had something that worked, and when they came back with their second version, that was completely different, and then created a seat of Yardley. They not only got rid of Acocks Green, but actually had a Yardley seat that ran from Neachels, so the border of the M6 Splitty Junction, down to Selfridges, and then out to the airport. It was a particularly weird-looking seat, but that's because they had to work on the numbers they had to work with and reduction MPs. This is slightly different, but this is a first pass. We may well see changes in the second pass.
Yep. Okay. Are there any other questions or points on the boundary changes? No. Okay. Any other community resident group items that people want to raise? Fine. I will just on this agenda point just flag up that we've got a regular litter pick of by the Friends of Foxhollies Park on Saturday, meeting at 10 a.m. at the pavilion at the Gospel Lane car park on Foxhollies Park. So if anybody is able to come then, you would be most welcome. And if that is it on this agenda item, we'll move on to the Commonwealth Games 2022 Celebrating Communities Fund, and I believe we have an update from the officers on this. Is that right?
Yes, Councillor, it's Pat White here.
Right.
Just to give you an update regarding celebrating communities. On the call, we have one of our community specialists who are locality working with Birmingham Community Matters, who are engaging with most of the wards within Birmingham around assisting groups and organisations in putting forward proposal bids for the funding in each ward. Just to remind you, Councillor, that Acocks Green under the programme has £35,000 in order to assist groups and organisations, residents around celebrating communities for the Commonwealth Games. And the criteria are getting active, ready, steady, fun, and celebrating culture. There are 3 pots of funding that's available, up to £1,000, then 1,001 to £5,000, and then 5,001 to £10,000. Currently, we've just had round 1. The closing date for applications was the 1st of June. And we are looking through the NDSU, which is the name of the Development Support Unit, who I work with. We are just currently appraising the applications that have come in. At this time, we're unable to say how many applications have come in for Acocks Green. We should have a better figure of that towards the end of the month. But in the meantime, just to alert people on the call that there will be a second round should all the allocation not be absorbed in the first round. So there's a second round due out in October, November. Now, the groups who have applied to, and I'll just use Acocks Green as an example, we also have locally a group and organisation called Community Anchors. and they would be working with yourselves, councillors and the groups, to do a presentation in the forthcoming weeks and months as to the proposals that have been brought forward on behalf of Acocks Green. I think that's as much as I can give at the moment. Mina, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I have just said.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks, Chair. Thank you all for inviting me to share a little bit of the Celebrating Communities Fund information. So my name is Mina Bradwa. I work for a national charity called Locality, and our aim is to support community organisations to be strong and successful. I'm based in Birmingham and have been for a while now, and so we do some of the delivery support with Birmingham Community Matters, which is a small Birmingham-based charity which supports community organisations. So if you don't know them, I'll pop their web and their contact details into the chat. They're definitely worth just information and sort of meeting up with and talking to. So as Pat said, there is a funding pot available for community groups in Acocks Green of up to £35,000, and Locality and Birmingham Community Matters are sort of supporting community groups to make sure that this funding comes down into the local community, into local community organisations and residents that want to, I suppose, get communities engaged and connected with the Commonwealth Games. So as Pat said, the first round has closed. We will be running funding information sessions from September onwards. So again, I'll put all the details into the chat so you can access the funding, and we'll also put in some contact details there so you can get in touch with us. But yeah, it was just a quick one to say hello, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you all a little bit more in September. But if you do have any questions or want to have a look at the grant guidance or the application form, that's all available to download off the Birmingham Community Matters website. And just any questions if anyone has any at the moment.
Okay, Mina, just to clarify on the process, I mean, I presume that when we see what the applications from Acocks Green are, should we happen to have £35,000 worth of fantastic applications that everybody agrees should be funded, that's basically sort of the end of the matter. They get approved and on we go. But should that not be the case, then we look again based on what the remaining sum is, and presumably to an extent based on who has been successful, therefore what gaps there are, if you like, and that would then define the parameters, if you like, of the second funding round. Is that broadly correct?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't developed the grant guidance. That's been NDSU who have developed it, but I think their recommendation is to certainly push some funds into round two, because the launch was slightly delayed. So whilst it'd be great to see loads of community action in round one, we're not sure that there will be that many applications actually in round one. But yeah, one thing I didn't mention, which I should have mentioned actually, and this is crucial, this is part of the key criteria, is that any application that passes its initial appraisal will need to align with the ward priorities. So it really is about making sure that sort of the local community's priorities are met through this funding application. So yeah, so we've put out all the application packs, we've put out funding information resources, so I can provide you with a link to that and to the public Google Drive, which has got all the allocations across the city, as well as your ward priorities and ward plans.
And just one other thing, if somebody applies in round one and it's rejected, do they A, get some feedback, and B, can they then reapply in round two? You know, obviously responding to the reasons that it was rejected, to put in a new bid based, updating it based on responding to those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the This process is slightly different to like a traditional grant funding process. So NDSU've set it up so that if it is addressing local need, but perhaps just needs a bit of strengthening, that group can access some support from Birmingham Community Matters or locality, so they can come to us and we'll work one-to-one with them to strengthen their application, either for round one, if they're kind of ready to go, but if they need a bit more support, we'll work with them over the summer into round two. So yeah, definitely an opportunity to strengthen support, and it's really about local community organisations. So you don't have to have done a funding bid before. You know, we will walk sort of alongside you in this process. So if it's just a group of residents who want to do something to celebrate the community, the Commonwealth Games, yeah, we can help you to do that.
Okay, I think we've got a couple of questions. So Julia first. No, Julia, you're on mute if you're trying
I've unmuted myself, I think.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. I presume, Mina, you're going to put up some links in the chat. Is that right? Right.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
will do.
Okay. Thanks. The other question, which apologies if it's a really silly question, but my understanding was, and I'm sure the councillors will correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that Acocks Green hasn't actually got a ward plan to align with. But is that me misunderstanding?
Have we got a ward plan?
Yes, you have got a ward plan, Councillor.
Oh, we did. Oh, yes.
We
Sorry.
did a ward plan over 18 months ago, Julia.
Yes, we did. Yes, it's all right. It's coming back to me now. Yeah. Short term memory loss. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Veronica.
Yes, I'm a little bit confused about this Commonwealth Games grant because that Liz and Chris, was it from the general public, had this £4,000 to feasibility study. Was it last summer, I think, Roger? And a lot of people put forward ideas as to what they could do. I mean, you know, I know they came from the Village in Bloom, the recreation ground, the Friends of Recreation Ground, Fox Hollies Park. Tyre put in a whole lot of suggestions, but we understood that the general public, I mean, it seems to me that they have come back and now told us that the results of the feasibility study is that really you've then got to apply for funding yourselves. I mean, we had quite a big discussion. They were looking at having a big event to start or to finish the games, and we put forward the idea of having some funding to improve the carnival, but it all came to what they've done. They've come back. I think we thought somehow that they would push for the grants for that, but what they've done is all they've done is come back and say, well, you've got to apply yourselves. And it's quite difficult for like the carnival committee at this point. We've missed the first stage to then put forward a plan. I mean, these grants are quite difficult and complicated to apply for. So I think we're all a bit confused as to what's happened to all the suggestions that went out this time last year or whenever it was when they did their feasibility study.
Yes, I would share the frustration that you raised there, Veronica. I mean, I think, again, officers, please correct me if I've got this wrong, but the £4,000 that they had was not from the Acocks Green pot, it was from a central pot. And a number of those grants were given out to organisations around the city to develop projects sort of separately but linked to this. And as you say, Veronica, they came back with what I think is generally in the Acocks Green community felt to be a rather unhelpful conclusion, which is that, hey guys, you can bid for some funding through this scheme, which is what we all knew anyway. And so the £4,000 doesn't seem to have particularly achieved anything, apart from actually, as you say, in terms of the Carnival Committee, probably stopped work being done on the thought that they were going to do something, and delayed any applications to the second round. So in that sense, they had a negative impact on the chances of that particular project going forward. Hopefully there will be funding available in the second round that can be bid for. So it's not lost. It's just to a certain extent made a bit more difficult. And I know that there were going to be discussions and feedback given about the feeling that this was not really a great use of £4,000 of the council's money. And I don't know if there's any further feedback on that, if anyone has got any information, but otherwise we can follow and chase that through.
Sorry, Councillor, it's Pat White here. It's just to say that the 4,000, I believe, may have been from the Landscape Practice Group, which is just totally different from Celebrating Communities. 3 years ago, the ward supported through the Local Innovation Fund some feasibility studies. This Celebrating Communities only came into being really in March of this year, so it's a different funding pot altogether. But I mean, Veronica, by all means contact me offline and I'll try with Councillor Harmer to get to the bottom of the £4,000 and the work that the Carnival Group had already committed and started.
Well, what I was thinking more of were the people, I mean, for instance, Kyneton, who from the forum, who does such wonderful work with those young people. I mean, I'm sure he put something in. It's those sort of projects that really could do with that funding. And I think we were all put off applying for it because, as I say, you know, Sue Week is the chair of the Carnival Committee, and obviously Roger's on. I mean, we've got all the leading people in Acocks Green are represented on the Carnival Committee. You know, and I think, as Roger said, we were all put off from, we didn't think we needed to apply because we thought this was happening through this general public. So it's what can be done now to let people know that they can apply for the second amount of funding. Is there any way, Roger, we can get round to those people who've got ideas and that they can apply for it? Because, as I say, there are some very worthy causes out there. I think going back on the fort, it's been paid and it's been done and gone, really, Pat. You know, I don't see much mileage in going back over it. It's been and gone. It's just making sure that those people who had some really good ideas to put forward something, that they have the opportunity of applying for the second amount.
Yeah, that's fine, Veronica. Again, we could put the details in the chat. Mina's going to put the details in the chat. I know I've spoken to Kyneton's on my mailing list, so he would have had the information previously regarding this Celebrating Communities Fund.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is to get clarity as quickly as is feasible, bearing in mind I'm sure there's a lot of bids to work through and all of that, but on what the outcome from round one is, so that we know what there is available for round two, and we can publicise that and encourage community organisations in Acocks Green to apply for the remaining funding as early in the day as possible, to give them as much time to work up the bids that they would like to see developed.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other?
Sorry, I was just
Julia,
going to say, if I may,
sorry, yeah.
just if there is, I've just popped it in the chat, but if there is already a proposal worked up, it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be by any means a sort of professional level. I'm sure it's great, and if it meets the ward priorities and it's run and developed by local people, you could submit that and we will work with you to develop that into a ward-wide proposal if that's what local community wants. So it didn't get that far. No,
they basically the end conclusion of their process was you guys could bid to this, which is sort of, well, what we knew. I mean, I'm being a little bit brutal in putting it that way, but not that far off the mark, I'm afraid to say.
No, Roger, I'm going to agree with you. I got some criticism from general public over my views on that meeting, but I stand by my opinion of that. I don't think we were well served, and that £4,000, I'm pretty sure it wasn't from Landscape Practice Group, because they work for me, and it's come through culture. So
I do apologise, then, Councillor. I didn't know where the funding.
Oh no! If it was, I wish it was through Parks.
Okay, there was the culture team. Sorry,
I wish it's culture. It was a centralised bidding thing from culture, but right. I think it was the way they came to us and frankly talked down to us.
Mm.
You know, we're the people coming in to help you, and we've given the information they wanted, supported them for the best part of a year on this, and then they come to us and say, "Oh well, we decided not to do it anymore."
Oh, I was totally unaware of that, Councillor, but I do duly note your comments. Thank you.
Yeah, really, really angry. You don't come and talk down to people in Acocks Green. It's not on. So we had some very strong views about that, but. So we don't have any information as to what bids we have submitted then, Mina?
Sorry, Councillor. No, we're not taking part. We're completely independent. We're
right.
on the side of the community, so we're just working with them. It's NDSU that are appraising the bids. I think Pat mentioned that they're currently appraising all of the bids now. So we're hoping by the end of next week we should have a clearer idea of the number of bids that have gone through. Certainly from our point of view, it's the number of bids that will need a bit of extra support and a bit of strengthening for their sort of like before they can be voted on, if you like, because that's part of the process that local community will vote on the proposals that they want to see happen in their local area. So we'll try and keep you posted as soon as we know. The one thing, I don't know, it feels like a slightly sore subject, but there is a cultural grant available. We've just been told that, and that deadline is the 1st of July. So there's a bit of time if anyone was, and perhaps the Carnival Committee were thinking about putting something in. It is again only in round one. If we have, as soon as we have any information, we'll publish it on the Birmingham Community Matters website. So if you were thinking about a Celebrating Communities bid, you could match fund a bid with the cultural, I think it's Cultural City bid, Creative City grant. So you could match fund it to put in kind of a wider project. But yeah, all the information is on the Birmingham Community Matters website, which is in the chat. So yeah, please do give us a visit. Do drop us a line. There's our email address there as well. So you don't feel like you have to wait until the round opens to get any support. If people have got ideas for proposals and want to start putting those together, yeah, definitely do that.
Right, that is helpful. Julia, did you want to come in on this? You're muted.
Okay, sorry. Two things. The first one is just really it's a follow-on from what we've just been talking about. So if for example a bid for a cultural project went in the second round, that wouldn't interfere with a bid for a cultural project that had gone in earlier, would it, or would it? I mean, for example, I think I've been hearing all along that what probably Acocks Green wants to do more than anything else is put in for funding for the carnival, which has been held up in the ways we've been discussing. But if a different kind of cultural project bid went in from Acocks Green, is that allowable, or would it have to be? Could that potentially encroach on say there was a smaller cultural bid? could it encroach on the carnival bid?
I can only speak from my understanding of the Celebrating Communities grant. So I would say no, but ultimately the decision is made by local people. So if you have grants and proposals submitted and you feel like they meet the ward priorities, local people get a chance to vote on the proposals they want to see. So of course, if there was a smaller, under £1,000 bid for a cultural activity, and then there was a carnival bid, it may work really well together. And if local people wanted to see that happen, then I don't see why they couldn't happen. You could, of course, the carnival could go for the wider sort of creative cities bid, leaving a bit of funding for sort of smaller local bids, but that is completely up to you.
Okay, thanks. The other question actually relates to that, and I hope I'm not becoming Department of Silly Questions tonight, but yes, thank you people for reminding me that we did do a ward plan, and I remember contributing to it. I'm not quite sure if I've seen, perhaps I have, and again I've forgotten, but I'm not sure if I've seen the completed and verified ward plan or know where I'd access it.
So it should be on the council website. Pat, are you going to put a link in there? I know you're typing away in the.
I was typing away there. Yes, it is on the council website, councillor, and also what my colleague Bev can send it out and via email should you wish to have that, Julia.
Thank you. Yes, that might be helpful.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, unless we've got any other questions on this item, don't think so. Move on to agenda item 5, any other business. We are at the nominal end of the meeting time, but I'm sure if you've got a quick item of other business, we can quickly pick it up. Is there anything anyone has?
If I could, Chair, just very briefly, just a reminder, you can get these tests from the government website. You can get them given to you in Tesco. Please keep yourself tested. If you've had both jabs, you still need to keep testing. We have seen an uptick in COVID infections in the city over the past week. Frankly, it appears to be a lot of what we're now terming COVID Delta as a predominant strain that's affecting us, and we're nowhere near the level of some of the places up in the northwest, but I think it's very unlikely we'll be heading for the release of lockdown on the 21st of June as planned, and I would expect some changes in our position over the coming days, just to deal with the direction of travel on this at the moment. So please get yourself tested and please stay safe.
Yep, wholeheartedly agree with that. I got a pile of those nice lateral flow tests myself, and it's very, very simple and easy. They're very, very simple and easy to use. So you can pick them up for free from many chemists, and we can get them sent to you. So please do participate.
They're not very pleasant to use, in fact.
Well, they're actually. I mean, they aren't. You're right, but they're a little bit. What's the right word? Less unpleasant than the original PCR tests.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, they do involve getting a sample from you. And that's not the most enjoyable thing, but yeah.
I mean, the key thing is do your throat before you do your nose. That's a really important message.
Yeah,
you're right.
Okay, Julia, did you have an item of AOB?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that because I've been aware of all these tests going round and hadn't really thought of it as applying to me. But so I guess a test from. So you want us all to test ourselves? So I get a test from a chemist. I'm a bit confused.
Twice. You should be try and test twice a week. If you just Google NHS COVID tests, it's on the gov.uk website. They'll post them to you. and they'll send you a couple of packs free of charge, no cost to you. It'll arrive in a couple of days. We are actually doing some door-to-door work in Allen Rock at the moment to hand these out, and you may find them just popping up at various locations. So I got that box there from Tesco the other week, so that they are just turning up and just handing them out. But you can order them online and they'll be posted straight to you.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks.
Okay. If there's no other items of any other business, we are at the end of the allotted time. So can I thank everybody for coming along, and all the residents, all the officers for supporting it. Great meeting, and look forward to the next meeting, which we will circulate. Have we got a date actually fixed for the next one? Just trying to remember. I think we did. Did we do a couple of meetings again? I think we might have done.
I think we might have done, council, but this is Bev here. I shall recheck. But again, we didn't know what the situation was going to be, so we can still set a date and then play it by ear as to whether or not it's online still or in person. So
I think we've got a date. Yeah, just checking through my diary. We've got a date of the 22nd of September, which, as is traditional, is a Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. And I guess basically it depends whether we have actually reached step 4 as to whether the meeting can be in person, and then there's a secondary question as to whether it seems the right way, either we carry on in this format or we shift to in person. But we'll take that decision obviously much nearer the date when we see how things are progressing.
Thanks, Chair and team. You're a good bunch.
Okay, thank you, and good night to all.
Well done, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
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 Thanks. Bye.